Hey, welcome to Mama Mandala. It is a full moon in Scorpio today. Welcome. How are you feeling? How's your body? How's your breath? You can take a moment to check in with that. If you're driving, you don't have to pull aside. You can just, as you drive, scan your body for a moment and feel into the space that you're in. If you are not driving and you're doing something else that you can't stop, you can just feel into it. It doesn't have to be a huge transition right now into a meditative space. But if you'd like, you can close your eyes, soften your gaze, and let yourself check in. If this feels supportive for you, you can place one hand over your heart and one hand over your belly. And feel your breath as it undulates and finds its way both into you and then out of you, expanding you and then contracting you. Filling you with life force and then emptying you out so that anything that isn't necessary, that isn't needed, is moving out of your body, moving out of your system, to make space for vitality to re-enter as you breathe in again. And as you sit or move or wash dishes or drive or simply tune to your breath and feel it pulsing and moving and finding its way in and out through your lungs, notice how you are right now. What's going on with you? What kind of life stuff are you dealing with? What kind of grief or loss are you facing? What kind of worries or excitements? What kind of gratitude or deep grace is pulsing and moving through you as the breath enters and then exits, fills you, and then empties you out? And if there's any big exhalation that wants to move through you, let it fully exit your system. Perhaps releasing anything that is stagnant and anything that you feel you're holding on to really tightly. And then whenever you're ready, if you'd like, you can allow your eyes to reopen if they're closed. Hey, how are you feeling now? So, yeah, it's a full moon in Scorpio, which means we are in the season of Taurus. They sit on the opposite side of the spoke on the wheel of astrology. So in the Scorpio season, which is in the northern hemisphere, happens in the middle of the fall. Scorpio kind of takes us into the depth of fall, into the depth of release, into the depth of the way that the wind is moving and stripping the trees of leaves. So it's the time of year, again, it's from a northern hemisphere perspective, that creates this movement toward the underworld, down toward the earth, down into the depth of our being. Scorpio governs our depth. And I'm speaking of this from an archetypal, mythological perspective rather than astrological. So I'm not an astrologer, but more of a mythologist, and I love exploring the way that the archetypes play in us. Even if you don't have any Scorpio in your chart, you still have some Scorpio in you. There are aspects of us, and maybe it doesn't speak to you very deeply, but maybe there's a little bit of a point of touch where you go, oh yeah, okay, this I recognize in myself. And then this is an invitation to explore for yourself how you want to work with these aspects of you. So the moon is full in Scorpio when Taurus is in the fullness of its expression. And Taurus is in the fullness of its expression in the northern hemisphere during the middle of spring. So Taurus anchors us into the season of spring, as Scorpio anchors us into the middle of the fall, of autumn. And in the southern hemisphere, it's the opposite. So right now in the southern hemisphere, you're moving toward the winter solstice. So you're kind of entering that last phase of the fall, and you get hit by the fullness of the moon in this archetype that leads you through the beautiful and meaningful way that we can interact with the pathways of death and decay and dissolution, and this deep surrender that needs to happen when something is being stripped off of us, like the leaves are being stripped off the trees. And in the northern hemisphere right now, we are anchoring into springtime. So we are playing, if we'd like, with the archetype of Taurus, which is, and you can watch the new moon in Taurus video if you'd like, I have that on my channel. But the Taurus archetype is sensuality and beauty and the blossoming of the flowers and the buzzing of the bees as they come to sip on nectar. It's full of life. It's this deep invitation to unfold, to rise, to open up, the way that spring gives the flowers a stage to express the plant's sensuality and sexuality, right? Because the flower is the sex organ of the plant. So it's this invitation to give ourselves time and space to play in the ways of sensuality and even sexuality if we like, but it can be metaphorically, that you don't have to go there actually, but you can take this fertiling it's a fertiling time in nature in spring. So it's this invitation to consider creatively what we're moving into, what we're opening up, what we are bringing into the world, and what are the things that we need to be in relationship with in order for the ideas, in order for the projects, in order for the art to come to life more deeply, more fully. And it's this invitation to pollinate. It's this invitation to, you can't do that alone, right? You have to do that in relationship to other beings, to other presences in the world. And then Scorpio comes as the moon enters its fullness and asks you, well, as you are blossoming, as you are opening, as you're bringing yourself into the full expression of the poetic heart of your art, of who you are, what do you need to let go of that perhaps is holding you back? That perhaps, what are the inhibitions that it is time right now to unchain yourself from? Unless you like chains, which Scorpio sometimes really is into it, right? So it's this invitation to release the binds that hold us back, but to bind ourselves into the things that turn us on, right? I'm going there on purpose, kind of playing with the BDSM sexual kind of metaphors, but they work, right? They work really well. Bind yourself to what turns you on, and unbind yourself from what burdens you and locks you in and gets you stuck in some patterns and habits and boxes that are just not working for you. And perhaps you're not even only doing that on your own with your choice, right? Like sometimes life moves through us not with our consent. Okay, I'm using that word purposely because we're playing with these metaphors. So a little bit of that edgy place, right? As humans, when we're working with these metaphors and when we're working with these archetypes, we have to consider in a cognitive kind of a way the places of consent, the places of permission, and the places of prohibition, the places where we're going to need to put chains, we're going to need to lock some things, we're going to need to not let certain things happen, right? But we're also then invited to play with the ways of nature, to play with the ways that nature is moving through us. And it depends on what you believe in. Some people believe that we're here because we chose to come here, and that's fine. Whatever you believe in is okay. But if you don't believe in it, like I don't subscribe to that. To me, it's a little bit too linear. It's a little bit, it lacks a little bit of the depth and the chaos that I really see the universe is exploding itself through. So if you depending on what you're thinking and believing in, but none of us really came here asking to be here. Okay, life randomly made us, and we arrived without our consent to a certain degree, right? Like no one asked you if you wanted to be born. And I know you can take it into your belief, but play with me in this space if you will, if you'd like. And if no one asks us to be born, then the things that are happening to us and the circumstances that we find ourselves in are not always going to be how we want things to go. So much of our lives is going to be about moving through situations and moving through experiences that feel like, oh, I did not choose this. I chose this, but this is not how I wanted that to go, right? I have that feeling often, like I made this happen, but now this is how it's happening? Shit, this is not what I want, right? That happens to us in life. So then there's this invitation during this time, if we'd like, with the fullness of the moon, if there's some things that are being taken away, if there's some things that you feel like this is not how I did not want to let this one go, but it was taken away from me, then how am I going to soften myself so that the grasping doesn't create more pain? Because there's already going to be pain that comes through grief. And again, it depends on the level of the loss. It can be something small and it can be something huge. Maybe it's someone you've lost and you love them so much and they're no longer with you. And that's a deep grief. And maybe it's something not as serious as a death or as a breakup, but it's still really painful and your heart still feels so broken by it. So how do we give ourselves space to grieve and do the work and take our time? Because that's not easy. I want to emphasize that doing the work of releasing something that's being taken from us without our consent is not easy. And sometimes I think it's not just our work, sometimes it's just time. But in those cases, often I find, at least for me, and I think for some other people that I know, the soft surrender is helpful for the process to happen on its own. Because when I harden because I'm trying to grasp and I don't want this to happen and I'm causing more pain because I'm trying to hold on too tightly, then the natural, organic progression of the way that grief is going and moving through us, we end up making it hard on ourselves. And you know what? Sometimes we need that. So wherever you are in the process, none of it is wrong. None of it is off necessarily. None of it is not what you need. Sometimes what we need is the very thing that we feel we don't need. This is so Scorpio, actually, to think about it this way, because Scorpio is the depth of our being. I said that in the beginning. It's the depth of who we are. So our depth is not our depth is made of complexity, because our depth is layered, and it's endless. It's bottomless, right? Because the deeper we go, the more we discover that there is depth to keep discovering and uncovering. And there's this invitation with Scorpio to surrender even to your incapacity to surrender, right? When you feel like, I can't surrender to this is the most horrible thing that could have possibly happened to me. Like that feeling where you just need to scream. And by the way, Scorpio full moon, get out there to a place where it feels okay for you and safe for you and not disturbing for others, and scream your grief out. Howl at the moon with the tenderness of the loss that you may feel. And listen, maybe you're going through a really great time, and this is for you to kind of put in your pocket for some other time in your life when you're gonna really need it. But we all, every day, we move through small experiences where something is being added and something is being taken. Something is being nurtured and nourished, and something is dying. There's a death, a little death, every day with every experience. And this is not to depress you. And I don't even feel like this is such a deep thought or anything, but I feel lately, and I think it's my age. I really do. I think sometimes some of it has to do with our age and where we are in life and the stage we're in, and sometimes not, but sometimes yes. I feel that life is constantly preparing us for death. Like there's constantly little moments in life where we need to release, where we are gonna need to surrender. And then the funny thing is, when you release something, it's not really going anywhere, because everything needs a space to be in, right? So it starts to break down. It starts to break down through all the different life forms that break things down in the ground, in the soil, in the earth, right? So as we release certain things, there's gonna be fungi and bacteria that eats up the very thing that we are allowing to let go. And that process of fungi and bacteria eating it up creates nourishment for this. It makes the soil more nourished and nourishing, right? For the life that grows through it, for the trees, for the roots of the trees, for all the plant world beneath the ground. There needs to be processes of metabolizing what has gone, a composting, an eating up and remaking of nourishment, so that to me can be really inspiring when I feel so sad and so lost, and when I feel like, man, I just don't understand why I need to. And listen, sometimes, let me speak from a very honest place. It can be years. Okay, it can be years where we feel like, whoa, this process of metabolizing and composting and creating nourishment out of death is long. Then the dark night of the soul, Scorpio is the dark night of the soul because it gives us the entryway into the darkest days of the year. So the dark night of the soul is sometimes thought of as winter solstice, but sometimes really thought of as that whole Scorpio season. It's this time of entering the darkest days. And so sometimes we're in the dark night of the soul for a very long time. And Scorpio is the supportive energy that holds us there. Not holds us there so we can re-emerge and come back out and go into Taurus mode, but supports us as we go through the process. Because surrender needs a supportive energy, needs supportive allies in the process. We need forces around us, be it people or plants or books, right? Depending on what it is. Like some of my greatest allies are books. So we need these supporting forces so that we can do the undoing work. So we can be undone by life. And the undoing and the way that life undoes us is a creative endeavor. The death that we experience is a birth canal. My great teachers, friends, Sienna Sherman calls it the womb is the tomb and the tomb is the womb. What a great reminder, right? The place where we are dying is a place where something else is being stirred into life. The place where something is stirred into life, the place where life is ignited, is where death begins its process. The unfolding of life is a death. You see it as a parent. I see it a lot in my mothering and in my children. They go through their own becoming, and their becoming undresses them from who they were. They break out of the shell of who they were constantly to become who they are, to continue that process of becoming. And that process of becoming is a process of unbecoming as well. It's both end. And my process in motherhood of becoming is also a process of undoing who I was so that I can show up as who they need me to be now. And that's not always smooth, not always how I want it to be. So in there's also the Scorpio invitation. Okay, this is not how you wanted it to be. This is not who you thought you would be. This is not how you envisioned it. Now what? Deep breaths. And how will you work with the pieces here in this place where you go, fuck, I can't believe this is how I acted. This is how I reacted. Okay, let me compost some of those pieces. Let me do the repair. Let me take the pieces that created the behavior that I'm so not proud of, and turn that into nourishment for something else to grow. And let me be not so hard on myself that I have that it's very hard to grow, because we have to mother ourselves. We have to, in the process of mothering our children, in the process of being a person that grows and work on themselves in the world, as we grow, no matter how old you are and what processes you're going through right now, we need to mother ourselves in a way that is constructive. So we're not enabling shitty behavior. We're not at all going to say, it's okay that you yelled at your children in that way that you didn't really want to. It's not. So it's not like, it's just okay. It's not okay. but I'm human and I make mistakes and I'm imperfect and I'm flawed, and there are ways for me to reweave myself with integrity into the relationship. I think of Scorpio as this deep integrity because it's a death. Scorpio is like a death doula, right? It ushers death in. It ushers life out. It supports, sorry, my dog is snoring right here. It's pretty loud. Supporting yourself through the process of your grief and your loss is Scorpio's work. And so it also then invites you with this release to reintegrate the pieces, to create reconfigurations. And this is very much then in relationship to Taurus season, because here we are in the expression, in the unfoldment, in the blossoming, in the way that life's blooming is reaching this sort of spring peak time. And both, I love the way that both Taurus and Scorpio are considered deeply and wildly sensual and sexual. In Taurus, it's the Aphrodite kind of a character. And I think of in Scorpio, it's more like Vampirella and Elvira kind of a character, if you're familiar. So it's more like the mysteries of a dark goddess, of an underground character that is seducing you into the loss of control in a way that kind of allows you to fully die. The way, if you think of the French and le petit mort, the little death, which is how they refer to an orgasm, right? It's this playful invitation to release so that creativity can flow through, right? To let something die so that something new can pull in and pull through, and that new thing that emerges, or the nourishment that you are giving the thing that is growing, is made of the integration of the pieces that needed to be untethered, that needed to be untangled, that needed to be removed, that needed to be dropped to the ground. This is a deep invitation to drop ourselves into the earth, to drop ourselves into the ways of the world's ability to move through us and churn us in renewal, and to open ourselves up to all the things that we can learn and be inspired by along the way. So there's this invitation, in some ways for Scorpio, full moon, I think of it as an invitation to work with all the pieces, right? To not leave a stone unturned. Because Scorpion, right? Scorpion lives under the rocks, like under the stones, right? So to find our depth, we're gonna need to look and include and work with everything. But then it's also an invitation to deeply respect the world of the shadow, the places of the dark mysteries, of the dark secrets, to honor the places where we need to actually softly keep things for ourselves, or to share them with only select few. Not everything needs to be shared with everybody. I'm an oversharer, so I often talk way more than I need to about things that are not necessarily for everybody to know, right? And I'm gonna honor that as well. I'm gonna let that also be something that I can work with, that I can integrate, that I can break down a little bit and move it in a way that it can become something of value. Because I know that when I meet other oversharers, I feel not alone. I value them so much, right? And I know that that experience is reciprocal. So it's interesting how something that may be experienced as a bit of a shadow quality can also be a deep medicine. So how do we turn with Scorpio is like, how do we work with all of our parts? How do we tend to all of the pieces? How do we show up to all that we are? And it's not just in a metabolizing kind of a way, although it is, because Scorpio is deeply and wildly and widely alchemical. But it's also to turn something that is a poison, to turn something that is a shadow into a gift, into medicine, into a helpful quality, is on the one hand alchemical, and on the other hand there is a softening and a receptivity for ourselves. It invites us to increase our capacity to be deeply respectful and wildly honoring and wide and broad in the way that we hold ourselves, because then when we do, we can also hold one another more deeply. I have a lot more thoughts and a lot more things I wanted to share, but that's how it always is. There's always more. That's the beauty in a way of this life. So I'm going to let it go in the Scorpio way, and I'm going to let it metabolize and become nourishment, and become something that feeds whatever comes next. And I hope this stirred in you and touched you in a way that is somewhat helpful, and I wonder how it's touching your life. I wonder where it speaks to you in your life. And I actually would love to hear if you feel like leaving a comment and letting me and everybody else kind of know where this moves you. That would be amazing. So leave a comment. If you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, subscribe to this channel. What are you waiting for? And subscribe to my mailing list over on mamamandala.com and our Substack, my Substack. I leave a link for you for all of it in the description of the video. And I am so looking forward to hearing from you and being in touch with you more as we go through this wild ride of death and rebirth. All right, there's so much more Scorpio stuff. I'll leave a link for you also for an essay about this full moon, so that you can check it out. It's a little different and a little similar to some of the things we touched. So I'll leave that for you, and I'll see you soon. Okay, thank you so much. Have a beautiful, meaningful full moon.